Just think of it as the rough draft of the podcast world. This is the Newbie Writers Podcast with your hosts Damien Boat and Catharine Bramkamp.
Hey, it's episode 138 of the Newbie Writers Podcast, and Catharine made it back from her communist trip.
I did make it back, eventually.
And you're now enjoying your crappy internet. Like I'm enjoying
Yes, I am. There's so much to talk about today.
I know, and it's probably non-writing related whatsoever. But that's all right.
Well, some of it is. Some of it is, because that's what I did on my trip was write. So we are definitely talking about writing.
Oh, righto. Well, we were to have a guest on. We were supposed to have George Hopkins on, but due to jet lag and time, emails, because he was also over in Russia as well. Hopefully he's made it back. He's not on.
Yes.
Can't get in touch with him.
He's not on. He did make it back, but he's not on. So maybe we'll catch him another time, which is fine. We don't have to be all worked up about this kind of thing. And I apologize because I'm a little jet lagged, but I think after staying up for 48 hours straight, which I've never done, and frankly I thought it would be more interesting than this, I think I beat the jet lag a little bit.
Jeez. So yes, why were you stuck in an airport in America?
Well, yes, in America. So I flew from Helsinki, from Copenhagen to Helsinki, from Helsinki to New York, JFK. On an 8-hour flight with Finnair, and Finnair has very, very lovely flight attendants and very, very narrow, tiny seats and parsimonious food service. So that was a very long trip. It was a very long trip, but it was an old plane, so we didn't even have the screens behind the seat in front of you. They just had like a big screen at the very front of the plane to watch movies.
Like Australia.
That is like so not going to work for 8 hours. So I read a book on Vikings because I was in Viking country, so that worked out sort of. So we limp out of that flight and go through customs, go through passport check, go through TSA again, because you have to get your bags and go through it. When you hit American soil, you have to go through everything at on your landing spot, and you go take your luggage around and go through. And I'm shepherding my tired mother, who's 79 years old, and saying, okay, go over here, no, stand in this line. We get to the United flight, and it's been delayed, okay, till 8 o'clock. Great. So we sit around in the air terminal for 2.5 hours, and it gets to 8 o'clock, 8:30. Finally, they get us on the plane at 9 o'clock. We're sitting on the plane, and it's going to be a nice flight. It's a nice plane. We have lots of room. There's, it's not packed. Well, I think one of the reasons that it got canceled was not so much weather, was more it was not a packed plane.
Yeah.
So we sit on the tarmac for an hour.
Wow.
The guy, our pilot, says, sorry, weather, we can't fly. So he takes us back to the airport, spits us into the air terminal, and the next flight available to us is 11 o'clock the next day. And there's no hotels, there's nothing. It was 1 o'clock in the morning by the time we got it all sorted out and got our next flights. And we didn't have anything to do but sit in the terminal at JFK overnight. And believe me, that is not fun. There's no place to go. You have to go down to, there's one terminal, there's one point open that is just for flights coming in, arrivals. So we sat in the arrival lobby on chairs with the arms so nobody can lay down, and sat there from 1 o'clock in the morning until 5, and then at 5, and you knew it was morning because the Dunkin' Donuts shipment came in. So when Dunkin' Donuts came, it was morning, and we all trooped back up to Terminal 7 and hung out there until 11 o'clock when we finally got crammed into a full flight, because that's what the airlines are all about, is full 100%, more than 100% flight. I sat in a middle seat for another 5 hours. Then we hit San Francisco, and of course by then it was 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So by 4, I made sure I was in full commute traffic, because that's what I needed to do for an extra hour, was to drive in traffic.
And that's why people
I didn't get home until 5:30 last night.
That's just crap. But hang on. let's just wind it back for a sec. You were on an airline called Thin Air.
Finnair. Finnair. So it's Finnish because it's out of Helsinki.
Oh, I thought you said Thin Air, as in Thin. And I'm like, that's not cool. Why would you call an air service Thin Air? Come up, you might pass out while we're flying.
Listen, if I could pass out while I was flying, I'd be so happy.
Right. Well, I think
I would be so happy. I can't sleep on airplanes at all. So I don't sleep on these long flights, but I do see a lot of films. We can discuss a lot of films if you want. I watch films. I sort of read, and we can talk about this in a few minutes. I did manage to work a little bit on the computer. I don't normally work on airplanes, and I actually got work done, which was very cool for me. And then of course when you're sitting in an air terminal in New York, you're not really sleeping.
No.
So I just didn't sleep.
So the airports are open then 24 hours, I take it. They didn't kick you out because they shut hours. I think they close hours at 11:30. Well,
the only part that was open was arrivals, and so we had a lot of arrivals coming in from South America. I don't know what that means, but there were, so there were people constantly moving around, and they had one 24-hour restaurant open, and they had 24 hours. It was opened as advertised, and I checked, and we had one book stand open, where I read lots of magazines. So I stood in front of the magazines and felt good that Jennifer Aniston is feeling better and has her life on track. And the bathrooms were open, so that was good. So we went in and out of there for a good time. It was amazing. And JFK is not the nicest airport at all, compared to some. My son has said that the best one to spend the night in is Heathrow.
Right, because it's big. And they're probably
I guess, and there's there's places, if there's like carpet, then you could almost lay down. But where we were, it was all like scarlet linoleum from 1955. So there's no way you're gonna walk on it, let alone I set my luggage on it. That was a little dicey right there. So it was fairly bad. But I have to say, here's my mom, who's not in the perfect shape, but she does okay. She went through that whole ordeal without a peep. She didn't complain. She didn't say anything. She just said, "Okay, we're going to go sit in Terminal 2. Okay, we're going to go back and sit in Terminal 7." Okay. She was great. She was really great about it.
But I think that older people are quite content just to sit. So maybe I would do all right because I'm just an old man on the inside. Just sit.
I had a hard time because it was so. You might not have been happy because you're tall. For those of us who are a little bit taller, my back still hurts just from trying to get comfortable on the seats. But find a place to put your legs. You put your legs up. That doesn't work. You put them down. It's just very challenging. So I would put a call out if we have any listeners who have better ideas for how do you successfully spend the night in an air terminal. I would love to know your techniques.
That's what someone needs to write, a little pocket guide. How to survive being screwed by thin air.
By Thin Air. That could be the name of any bad airline, right? Thin Air. It's not a bad idea, Thin Air. My son did a blog on the best airports in which to sleep, and he got a ton of hits on it. So I should go look that up and see what he says about JFK. Probably bad things because he was traveling in Europe at the time. But I mean, that kid was flying Ryanair for a while. And if I thought that my Thin Air flight was bad, Ryanair is the ultimate low budget, put wings on a bus and just send it off into the air. Wow. It's really bad.
Awesome. You call it Hack Air. I don't know.
Hack Air. Have you ever been on Ryanair?
No. I've never heard of it. Well, we have Qantas.
Is it Air Ryan?
And
no. It's this tiny air. It's a tiny little plane, very, very cheap. It's kind of like JetBlue, but worse. It is super budget. Like you can fly from London to Paris for like €50. It's like crazy cheap because the planes my son said that, and he said, I told him he can do these things when you're in your 20s. By the time you hit your 30s, your back hurts, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you go into Ryanair. They don't fly out of major airlines. They fly out of like little adjunct airports.
Oh.
So you don't fly into London. You fly like in an hour out of London, and then you need to take a bus. So that's number one challenge. Then the seats are like plastic seats that we had in school, molded plastic seats,
Right.
bolted to the floor.
Mm.
The safety instruct, so they don't lean back, nothing, right? The safety instructions are printed on the seat in front of you. It's just screened on the front, and they haven't figured it out quite yet. But I think you have to pay to go to the bathroom. I think there's a little pay thing on the restroom, and of course no food. Yeah. And you just sit in your little seat, your little school seat with your seatbelt on and go. And he says it's just crazy, and I said I can't even imagine.
Yeah, and do you have to have no family or anything? Was that a prerequisite, just in case?
Yeah. Yeah, I think so.
Does it have handles on the seat in front?
I think. You know how you have those ride things? You have to be this tall to, ride on the Ferris wheel or whatever. I think for Ryanair, it's like you have to be under 30 and have no fear to ride this airline.
You have to be this stupid to sit up the front. Yeah.
Right. Right. So I have to say there are worse airplanes than Thin Air airlines, but it's just it's rough. Other than that, I had a really fabulous trip, and you took over so much and had so many. You had such an interesting time with some of our guests while I was gone.
Yeah, I did. It was good fun. Other than we seem to be plagued by the internet bugs of crappy Wi-Fi. We had that. That was unfortunate for the Chapter 1 girls. They were in a hotel. I don't understand why hotel Wi-Fi needs to be so bad. It's like they just went down to Kmart and bought a crap router for $20 and went, yeah, that'll do the whole building.
Yeah, so they do. That's exactly, and they charge you for it. I mean, in some American hotels, it's like, okay, it'll be $30 to access your Wi-Fi, and that's why when I go to the San Francisco Writing Conference, the Mark Hopkins not only has bad Wi-Fi, you have to pay for the bad Wi-Fi, and then I show up in Helsinki in this, it's a convention hotel, and everything's fine. It is lightning speed Wi-Fi all over. Anywhere in the room. My room gets it on the 5th floor. It was, in fact, I think all of Helsinki has Wi-Fi because I was never out of range. But what a great country!
You're gonna have to move there. Yeah, well, because we had Karma.
Oh, it was amazing. It was amazingly good.
We had Karma Bennett on. That was good. Let's talk about publicity, and then
good.
There is one downside to having Courtney Killian on last week. Is that she's now more famous than we are.
Oh, damn it. Why?
Yeah. Oh, I got a tweet from her saying, someone just came up to me in the street and said, hey, you're that girl that was on the Newbie Writers show. Like, I don't even get that. I've been turning up here for 138 shows. I don't even get that. She turns up for one.
Nope.
What's going on? Anyway. So, yeah.
Well, good for her, but yes, I don't get recognized either.
Yeah, we're doing something wrong, clearly. So
clearly.
But yes, it's just us this week. We should probably talk about some sort of writing. What have you actually done?
Let's talk about writing. I have. Well, one of the things that I noticed when I was traveling, so just to give a little background, I was traveling with a group, and a lot of us do, and it was through I usually travel with my mom with a group, because traveling just with my mom by ourselves would not be successful. So a group kind of, you sign up, you get your hotels taken care of, you get your transportation, for better or for worse, taken care of. You have a guide, which is great if you're in Russia, because I don't speak the language. I'm really happy to have someone there who does. And you go along pretty well. Well, let's say when you're in that mode, or let's say you're on a cruise, or you're traveling with family. Let's say you're just traveling with family. What do you do as a writer? How do you keep that up? And so I was thinking about that on the way home.
Mm.
because I had 8 hours to think. And I came up with a couple of ideas, and so that's what I thought that we would talk about today. And it's a combination of what you're using to write with, what's appropriate for various kinds of writing in various situations, and how do you find the time and the place.
Well,
so
I think you found the time.
that is. Well, yeah. So we can talk about time. We can which one you want to talk about, time or technique?
Well, I think time is pretty clear. I mean, when you travel, you've got a lot of time, don't you, between things. So I think that's kind of covered. What about technique, though? Like, how do you go about doing it? For me, I would be okay trying to type on a plane maybe, but then you can't really do that if you jump onto a rickety bus or minivan and you're trying to hold on to your mother and some other weird guy from Austria in clogs, and you're trying to type. It's not going to work. So how do you go about doing that then? Right.
Well, what I do is, and that's a good question because that's what I was thinking of. So I have two. I should take a picture of this book. I use two methods. I have a physical notebook that is a 5x7. I think it's a 5x7 spiral notebook. I would use spiral notebooks if I were traveling. If I were you, I'd use spiral notebooks because I stuff them with all of the brochures, postcards, tickets, and I glue those into the book. And then I make notes about the trip. I make notes about the book. And that is what I use when I'm on the buses, when I'm on the trains, because you're right, you can't really type. It's not practical to open up the laptop, or what I used was I used my iPad with a detachable keyboard, which is why I could use it on a plane. I don't know how people type on a laptop in a coach section on a plane, because I can't see the screen well enough, and if someone leans their seat all the way back, you don't have any room. So the iPad, let me tell you, there's nothing like flying with someone's head in your lap. That's exciting.
But that's called the Mile High Club.
So I type with the the Mile High Club. That would be the nice version. It's never that way. I usually have some big beefy guy where his shoulders extend on either side of the seat, and he can't get comfortable for 8 hours, so the thing just bounces all the time.
That's why I'm going to fly business. I'll fly business class.
There you go. The dog just growled. He agrees with me. So I use so I have a Logitech keyboard for the iPad and the iPad. That has worked beautifully for like on an airplane, and then I also used it, in my room, etc. Writing in a notebook is easier on moving targets, on your trains, planes, your trains and automobiles and buses. And I always carry it with me, because you're right. If you're traveling on a bus from point A to point B, you have a little time. If you're clever, you don't sit right next to anybody. I always have my own on a bus. I always try to have my own seat and have Mom have her own 2 seats and I have my 2 seats. Because the other thing is, you don't really want someone leaning over you all the time saying, "What are you writing? What are you writing? What are you writing?" Especially if it's a parent or a child. And I'm thinking, I'm writing about you, and you're really making me crazy.
Did you get any complaints from the group going, "Oh, we're on this tour, but that American lady, she keeps stopping and jotting notes down. It's really holding us up"?
No, I don't have anything like that, because I do it so here's where I write. I write on the buses, going from point A to point B. Write on the trains, going from point A to point B. We had a cruise from the very top of the world, Ivalo, to, where did we get off? Doesn't really matter, because she wouldn't care.
I wouldn't know.
We got off at Bergen.
Bergen?
We might have gone off in Bergen. Yes. Bergen. I liked Bergen, Norway. Bergen, Norway is cool.
Does everyone walk around going,
cruise through the
bork, bork, bork?
Sorry?
Does everyone go, bork, bork, bork? Is that how they talk? Oh.
No. No, but I thought about that. I thought about the Muppet Swedish Chef. They have a little bit of that cadence, and it's hard not to go.
I need to.
But they were lovely people. So we had a 5-day cruise through the completely above the Arctic Circle, to these tiny little towns like Hammerfest and Kirkenes and Vartso and Hardstad. And it was because of the cruise, there's time on, like as you said, there's kind of time on the cruise to make notes or to write. Well, that's nice, but my mother likes to talk to me all the time. And so you have people around you saying, well, let's chat. And you're thinking, no, let's write. So here's what you do. If you're on any kind of boat, you're on a cruise, you've got your children talking at you, your in-laws, wherever you are, here's how you find time to write. Offer to do the laundry.
Right. Why?
This was the best discovery I made, because you can't leave the laundry. On any cruise ship, the laundry's usually in the basement, so there's no view, right? So nobody really wants to be there. So I went down to do the laundry, and you have to babysit it. You can't just leave it, because you don't want somebody to take it out. You don't want it to, disappear. So to babysit the laundry. So I had the laundry in the laundry, and then I went around the corner, and there was this empty lounge, and I wrote up the plot outline for my next book. And no one bothered me, and I just typed away and had the best time. And then I came back and got all these kudos for doing the laundry. Score! It was a win-win.
Jeez. Oh, there's one way around it, I suppose. Was it inspiring, though, to be sort of in those places? I mean, I know you don't really get into the whole Nordic sort of stuff and the medieval things, but did it sort of inspire you then to think, I could write one of these? All the castles and the Vikings?
What inspired me, this is interesting, what inspired me was actually the modern, comparing a socialist government, which is very much what Norway and Finland are much more socialist governments, to our current, to the American system, which is, I don't really know what we are, so I don't even have a good label at this point. But comparing the two approaches, the two government approaches, one being very focused on just the 1% wealthy who can buy the politics, to a socialist government that really is all about let's make sure everybody has healthcare, let's make sure everybody has education. And it was pretty astonishing to see how well that worked. So that's what inspired me to write my third book, which is about what's going to happen when we take where America is right now and extrapolate that about 150 years into the future, when there's all of the resources go to just 1%, and the rest of the country is just left to their own devices. So very dystopic, of course, most novels are, but it's kind of like what George, not that I'm comparing myself to George. Well, but it's like what George Orwell looked at when he was worried about communism, and he said, what happens if communism actually does take over? And then he wrote 1984, extrapolating what would happen in the next 100 years. And so I was similarly inspired.
Right. So would that be set then in the whole Future Girls universe that you're creating?
Yes. Yeah, it's another Future Girls.
Starts to sound like, why would you want to be part of that universe? Their future is messed up all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. But that's how you make social commentary, is that you extrapolate it out and say, where are we going and what are we doing? So that's exactly what I'm kind of all about. So it was pretty good, and I had some time, although I can't really write right next to my mother, because that has never worked. But I had enough room, a physical room, so I could kind of move away and write. One way of writing is to make it look like work. So when you're typing away at something, this works better on a computer. So let's say you're typing a computer or an iPad, and someone comes over and says, "Oh, what are you doing?" You say, "Oh, I have to do this work." They'll leave you alone. Work is a nice little bubble to put around yourself. So tell people you're working, and they'll say, "Oh, she's working." And I give my mother this big song and dance about how much I'm working, and I could be writing on Facebook, which I was, and she says, "Oh no, Catherine's working. Leave her alone."
Yeah,
it was great.
You wouldn't go on holiday to work either, would you? So that.
Well, I brought my classroom with me because I can. So I still had papers to grade, and I still had some classroom work to do. So yeah, I did bring it with me.
Did you get any tortured sentences out of it?
I did. I have to go back and look at the papers, but there's a couple of them. Yes,
Of course.
I did.
Of course you did. Jeez.
I also took pictures of tortured sentences. I try to be careful of that because translations are always more sincere than not. But there were a couple that I came across that I took photos of for us to use as tortured sentences that were just too irresistible.
And
I had to grab them.
being in Russia, did you consume a fair bit of vodka? Isn't that what you're supposed to do over there? And cold fish? I don't know.
I totally did. Oh, and I have a vodka story. Okay, so yes, I did. And what I like to do when I travel is I go for the local drink because that's A, what they make the best of, and B, much cheaper than buying any wine. There is no wine in these northern countries. What do you know?
That's because you drink it all in California.
No, it's because it's so cold they don't grow it themselves. So everything is imported, and it's all super expensive. Like wine was $100 a bottle and up. So no, I was not going to drink wine. So yes, I drank the vodka, and it was good. The local I drank Finnish vodka, Russian vodka. It was very, very good vodka, and I would just take it. I just took a shot with a piece of lemon in it. That's all I did. Is just, if you're going to go for it, go for the pure stuff. So I like this one vodka, and I bought it at, well, I think did I buy it at a grocery store or on duty free? It doesn't matter. I bought 2 bottles of vodka, one to drink, because when we got to Norway and Finland, the tax there on consumable goods is 100%. So all of the alcohol, food, everything was very expensive. So we brought our own alcohol just for parties in everybody's staterooms. And I bought a bottle for us to drink and a bottle to bring home to my husband. Mm-hmm. And the bottle, it's just a little one. I don't know. I don't have it in front of me. But, plastic, so it was too heavy to carry. I shoved it in my luggage and forgot about it. I went through TSA 3 times on our way home because I went through New York twice because I had to go out and come back in, go out and come back in. And they never caught the bottle. I didn't even realize it was in my luggage until I did it all. I did my luggage all carry on. I looked at my leg, I unpacked, and I said, "Oh, I got this bottle of vodka all the way through, carry on, everything," and they didn't say a word. So there you go. Just so you know, you can hide liquids. FYI. Yeah.
Well, that's just great. You've now just set off some alarm somewhere in a government agency.
Probably.
Going, that's it.
They can come and get it if they want to share it.
Yeah. Oh my God. So I'm curious.
So I thought that was pretty funny, but I did definitely drink vodka. Yes.
I always put that challenge out. Did you find anything Russian for me that is just stupid?
I couldn't find stupid, but I did send you something I put in the mail today.
Right. I couldn't find stupid. That's what we should call the show instead of Soviet Podcast with You. Newbie Riders Podcast 138. We couldn't find stupid. Yeah, that's all right.
I like that. I wonder if let me play around with that. That would be fun. I couldn't find stupid.
Oh. Well,
no, I could not find stupid.
I haven't done any.
Give me a second. I'll look for stupid when I go to Germany in September.
Right.
I'll have more time.
Oh, the Germans. Yeah. If anyone's in Germany and they want to give Catherine a good time.
The last thing I sent to you from my Germany trip from Cologne, you practically got confiscated from your people going through your mail.
Yes. Well, if you're gonna send me mints that are in the shape of male genitalia, then what do you expect?
I don't know what I expect. I expected it was the stupidest thing I could find.
Well, it was clear that the lady that was, doing the customs must have been a, liberationist or women's lib, whatever. She didn't take kindly to penis mints.
No.
Whatever.
No, she had no sense of humor. Sometimes they just don't have a sense of humor.
But it got me. Anyway. Yes, well, I haven't done any writing when it comes to my own stuff. I've done a lot of writing for work. which is something we should probably explore at some point on this show. Oh my God, sorry.
Yeah.
My neighbours seem to be stuck into the Brazilian World Cup thing, and across the road they've been blowing air horns every Saturday morning.
Oh
So,
no.
if you hear me just disappear for a minute, that's because I'm shouting at small children to get off my lawn. Anyway, yes, we should look into writing for work and how it differs from fiction writing, even non-fiction writing, and how to structure it. I think,
does.
Yeah,
it very much does. And yes, in fact, I'll let me make a note. Let's put together something like that.
Yeah, and if that can influence then how you do write in your personal time, because when I'm having to write things for work, I use a lot of terms that can seem quite harsh, but because you have to be clear, you have to be very black and white. You have to be, the installer will be installing this. They will be doing the following. Like you can't say, yeah, well, they'd like to do it in a nice kind of way, and we'll think about how it's going to be done on the day. No. You put terms like that. Such and such will be of a quality that is acceptable for the situation it's in. Like you use terminology like that.
Yeah.
And I just want to know.
There's also jargon. You can talk about that.
Well, yeah. And just how, if I then stop doing that and then go and you start writing something else personally, how does that, can that influence you subconsciously? So someone's going to read a fantasy book and it's, you've got your dragon going, I will endeavour to achieve total destruction of your citadel.
That would be actually kind of funny as a character. That would be very funny. I mean, that's kind of a Terry Pratchett Discworld kind of thing where you have a character who speaks, very, very formally, because like you're writing for work. I think that's funny. I like that.
Yeah, I'm thinking I might need to include that now. That's not a bad idea. I don't have any.
It's not a bad idea.
I don't have any dragons in mind. I don't know if I'm tempted to steer clear of it. It seems to be a thing in medieval fantasy books. So he's got to have a dragon. Maybe have something else.
Well, I don't. Well, see if a dragon appears. I mean, sometimes, again, because we've talked about this, sometimes dragons or anything just appear as you start thinking about the book or you start working on the book. So, let your dragon be the driver of that, so to speak, and say, oh, if you're walking along and all of a sudden a dragon shows up, there you go. That's your answer.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Such a
Doesn't I make it sound so easy, don't I? La, la, la. Oh, look, a dragon. La, la, la.
It's about like up, but squirrel, like dragon. It doesn't happen like that. They're walking along a dirt track going, we must defeat the evil. Look at that, a dragon. Didn't see that massive thing there. Jeez.
That would be pretty good. I like that.
Yeah.
Squirrel, dragon, apocalypse. Yeah.
Yeah. You wouldn't see any roadblocks either. How would that go in medieval towns? You see, these are little things I think about that are completely irrelevant. How can we never see in those books about dragons that, they're in a township and like, oh, don't take the main street in. We've got a major dragon blockage today. It's taking way too long. We've got a broken down dragon on the M1. Anyway.
That would be funny. I like that.
Yeah,
what happens if you put dragons in modern times?
Well, yeah.
Do you need to put them in, do they need to be, in special places where there's lots of fire extinguishers, just in case?
Yeah, so then if you go to fill up petrol at the service station, it's got please turn off your mobile phones, fill up your containers on the ground, and no dragons. That's a good idea.
And no dragons.
In fact, if we were to have some stickers made up with the no sign, the circle with the red line in it, and put a dragon silhouette behind, we could go around sticking these on.
That's right, because it would have relevance on so many levels in so many ways.
Yes. If anyone's interested in helping us set up the anti-dragon party, actually, we probably...
It's kind of like the zombie party.
probably shouldn't do that, because people like... Oh, Kiara Ballantyne is a lawyer, so she loves dragons, so I don't want a lawsuit from her saying that's discrimination against the dragons.
They were discriminating against dragons.
Chaos today
Like it.
as a dragon held up the local 7-Eleven. Yeah, right. This is going way off tap.
It is going, but it can be I mean, let it be inspirational. I mean, sometimes when you get stuck, or like as you said, it's like, I don't know, maybe I should have dragons, and we get to talk about it. But maybe, and if you don't have really weird friends to help you talk about these things, you can always give us a call or drop us a line.
Yes.
But talking through something like that can be really helpful. So we went from, gee, how about dragons? Well, how would you put a dragon in? Do you just see it? All right, where would a dragon be? Would it be in modern times? What would happen then? That's part of that creative process. So I know that sounds like we went way off on a tangent, but that's part of how you think about things, is you let yourself go off on a tangent. Don't be afraid to do that.
No, that's my problem. I always go off on a tangent. There's no filter.
That's why we have a rough draft of notes and scripts, just to kind of help pull it back in again, right?
Yeah, that's right. Except we've covered most of it. Yeah, I don't know. I still think it's good though that you've managed to. You still keep that writing in the back of your mind. Like I just picture if I was in a place like that, I think my brain would just be whirring. Be like, oh, I couldn't be bothered going to see people in clogs or drinking. Sometimes just being in a different zone can be enough to go, oh, right, I want to go home now and just write. I've been here, done that.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I don't want to go home and write so much as like I make notes. I bring things to help, inspire stuff. If I get bored, I've got a list of things. It's like, okay, if you're bored, then let's write some prompts. Let's, write some, rough drafts for newsletters, that kind of thing. I wasn't bored, so that was good, because I got an idea for a book, and so I worked on that when I got inspired, and I think that's part of it too. When we're on a trip or a vacation, part of that for me to go away is to allow myself to do any kind of writing I want, and if I write some drafts for poems, great. If I write drafts for stories or ideas for my newsletter, great. If I don't, that's okay too, because I think part of what that vacation is to not have pressure to produce anything. And by taking the pressure off, you will surprise yourself and you'll start producing all sorts of cool stuff, because you've said it's wide open. I'm going to spend 3 weeks just being in a new place and experiencing new things and seeing what that triggers.
Well, you mentioned poetry. I was having this conversation the other day, and this might sound a bit silly, but because I like poetry, I'm more of a poetry person, but I find that poetry is really only for the person writing it. Does that make sense? Like there's so many poetry things out there, and I read them, and you hear people narrate them, and I just think, yep, whatever. Like, if someone was to read some of my poetry, they'd think, okay, fine. But to me, it's like, okay, well, that had meaning. I had a reason for writing that. There's all these things attached. But at the end of the day, unless you can convey, and that's why there's that 1% that do amazing work, and it just carries on through time. But on the whole, most of it is just that's someone's pure emotion, feeling, thought process. But doesn't really have that same depth to other people. That's what I've found. I don't know. I'm going to get a lot of hate mail about this, I think. It's like you see all these poetry anthologies out there and you flick through them and you go, yeah, okay, that's nice. That it's more for them than it is for anyone else. I don't know.
I think you shoot for about I'm going to say a lot of what poetry writing is, it's like 80-20. 80% is personal. So 80% is getting, as you said, you get emotions out. You can chronicle things. It's all about yourself, right? Because a lot of poetry is internal. It's all about me. This is how I'm feeling. How do you feel about me? Let's talk about you. What do you think of me? It's all about me. That is totally fine. That is totally fine. It's not going to get published anytime soon. It's just for you, and that's okay. 20% can be the poems that you want to create because you have the voice. You are talking about something and you have the words to explain something that the reader can't explain. So it's your job as an artist to discuss things and find the words so that people can relate to a situation in a different way.
Yeah.
That's going to be your 20%.
And I think it needs to be those ones. Those ones are a bit general. I find that the poems that you read that do cater that are somewhat.
No, I don't. I disagree. I don't think they're general. I think by being very specific, you then can create a truth that becomes more general and speaks to more people.
Well, yeah.
So I think that the specific becomes the general, and I'm teaching a class on this over the summer, so I'm ready for this question.
Yeah, well, this is the thing. Like, you read some of them, and if you get to talk to the author or whatever, and they'll say, "Oh, well, this is the time when I had cancer, or I lost my mum, or I lost this." And it's like, yeah, okay, but I'm not relating to it. But then you get those other ones that are written in a way that, as a reader, you can go, "Oh, this sounds like the person writing this is sorrowful for such and such," or you can kind of relate to it a bit better. I think that's what I'm trying to get at. There seems to be a real lack of.
Yeah, it's the relating.
Yeah, it's that you need to do, even if it is a specific topic, you need to do it in a general way that makes me feel like, oh yeah, that's speaking to me about something that I can relate to. And if you were to talk to that author and say, oh, that reminded me of when so and so died of cancer, and they turn and go, yeah, but I was writing that because my football team lost.
Right.
That's how it should be. I don't know. I'm getting off track here, but I just think.
Yeah.
I was having this conversation about
that
it.
That is how it should be. My poem, Day of the Dead, very popular, been published in a couple of anthologies and online, and it is highly specific about family members who have passed away, and what would I put on there for Day of the Dead, what would I feed them, and then what would I want to be fed, and it's very, very specific, and yet people relate to it like crazy. And it speaks to something that they have thought about or that they can relate to. So you don't know as a poet what is going to relate. But I would stay away from trying to be really general, because the general ones are even worse, because they're the ones about love and universality and how we should all hold hands and sing Kumbaya. That's not going to work either. You have to get that moment where you're very, very specifically creating something that almost in a surprise level talks about the general, and then that can encompass a bigger feeling or a bigger experience.
Yeah, but you don't want to be too specific. Like, I think that anyone called Enos would be a bit annoyed. Yeah, there once was a man called Enos. But yeah, I don't know, poetry.
Exactly.
I think.
So do you want to do a prompt?
I can, just quickly. Do you think people grow out of poetry a bit? But there's that thing of, like, when you're in your teenage angst years, it's very easy to do. But then as you get older, it sort of becomes a bit more harder. I don't know. I found I've sort of fallen out of it a bit.
I think people who, yes, I think that there's an element of that, but then I never outgrew it.
Or do you think it just...
So I think maybe it's like anything else. You experiment, you're creating something, you're expressing yourself, and poetry is part of that experimentation, and I would encourage it for everybody. And humans write poetry, we write songs and poetry. That was the very first ways that we communicated, and we didn't get into the novel prose writing until much, much later in our in our trajectory, in our evolution. And so I think everybody should write it. It's just a case of, some people find that they do a good job, and they do a good job expressing, the universal with their specific language. And other people just say, oh, I read all this sappy stuff when I was a kid, and then I got over it and, went into nuclear engineering. So
exactly. Yeah. I was an angry boy, and now I'm just an angry man that couldn't be bothered. Yes, we can do a prompt.
That's right. That's right.
Prompt. What is the...
Okay, you ready for a prompt?
Yes. The weirdest souvenir that you have bought or received as a gift. Why do we need to purchase something from our travels anyway? Suppose it's better than taking a chip from the pyramids. They'd be gone right now if some enterprising person hadn't started making tiny pyramids out of plaster. Well, that is part of my thing. So I don't get out much. And I don't see the point in souvenirs where you get that T-shirt that says, I love New York, or I love Australia. Who cares? Mm-hmm. I don't care for snow dome things with a dolphin in it just because you've seen one. That's why I put that challenge out, that if anyone goes away to another country, to find a weird thing that isn't necessarily a souvenir, but if you take it back, you can go, yeah, this came from Germany, and it's mince in the shape of a penis. Like, you don't go to the duty-free store and they have that on the rack. I mean, here, if you go to those stores or those touristy places, they're all plush dolls of kangaroos and koalas.
I have a koala and a kangaroo and a platypus.
Of course you do, because that's what that is the touristy thing. Now, we went to a wildlife park down here near us that is very heavily catered towards tourists. You buy your ticket into the actual wildlife park where you buy all the touristy stuff, and it is wall to wall plush dolls of that and snakes and koalas, whatever. But then you get in there and you find out that, well, kangaroos are lazy and good pet food. And then the koala just was sitting there, so, and those things are vicious.
Yes, they are. You have to be very careful. That's what I've heard.
So, yeah, I don't know why you'd want to buy one of those things. But anyway. And there was Russell Spector on Google Plus. He was saying that he heard, and I love old wives' tales and myths, that, was it one square foot area in Australia, there's potential for 30 deadly species of something. I was like, yeah, but you'd be a bit disappointed when you survived.
I love that about Australia. It's like the best place to take teenage boys.
Yeah, well, that's right.
Best place.
I get plenty of weird things. Got something from Hawaii that was it was a fertility helmet. It was a tiny little helmet with a big feather on the top, and it was called a makini. It's a bit like mankini, but without the N. So that cracked me up.
Oh, funny.
Right, so again, don't buy these things just at a duty-free. So what's the weirdest souvenir that you've got?
What is the weirdest souvenir that I've gotten? And I should have thought of that when I did the prompt.
Yes.
I don't have... Well, my husband had one from a person went to Mexico, or one of his clients went to Mexico and brought back a bottle of, it wasn't tequila. It was a bottle of some liqueur, because liquor is a good gift, it's a good gift. And it was the shape of, like a fertility goddess. So it was like, shaped of a rounded woman, female shape. Right. We always thought the bottle was really, really interesting. We saved the bottle. We finally the other day said, we should try this, just see, if it tastes okay. And of course, it didn't.
Yeah, it'd be horrid.
So it was a bit horrid. My mother, not the weirdest one, but one of the most challenging is my parents brought back fisherman sweaters, Irish hand-knit fisherman sweaters for myself. Big, heavy, the neck, and crew neck sweaters. That's great if you live in Northern Ireland.
Yeah, not in California where it's sunny all year round.
You got it. We can't wear them.
God, what a waste. Well, I think...
Because they're so thick and heavy.
I think that there's... I must be flagged at customs because I get friends to do this sort of stuff, and the other weirdest one, and he's going to kill me. I can't find it. We sort of lost it during the move, but I think it came from Turkey. It's a little terracotta statue of a man with a massive erection, like the size of the statue itself. And it was a fertility statue.
Those are great fertility gods. We saw a lot of those in Egypt.
Yeah, but you see, these things get sent to me in little concealed packets. And actually, on that, I buy a lot of things online for work, and I had purchased, and this is such an innocent purchase thing, right? So I purchased a thing for a HDMI splitter. It split 2 HDMI signals, right? So a bit of tech talk. And purchased it off eBay because it was cheaper. And the place that sold it to me, the username was something like Cosmo Fantasies.
Oh, God.
And it was a little thing, and they wrapped it in like some pink thing. I reckon they do it deliberately, have a lens. And I missed the delivery, so it meant it went back to the post office. And so I took the little card in. Like, here you go. She's rifling around, and she comes out, and it had the Cosmo Fantasy sticker on it. It was massive. And it was this weird shaped box because it's got like fly leads on it. So if you can imagine like this square box with like this long, anyway. And she's handed it to me, and she gave me a wink, and she's like, "There's your thing." Yeah, thanks. So I think now the post office thinks that I'm dealing in sex toys. Yeah, puts a new meaning to on-site AV, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah.
She just looked, she gave me this really sort of like, seductive type look, like, "Oh, what are you ordering from Cosmo Fantasy? I buy heaps of stuff from there."
That's the other thing. If somebody does say, "Hey, I see that you got this item from this, this company," it's like, well, how do you know?
Yeah, and that begs the question: what other stuff do they sell that isn't AV related?
Exactly. So you could ask that question: how do you know what this is?
And then it might be a secret club, and then they send me a private link to some black market stuff, and I'll just be horrified.
Yeah.
And start importing them.
There you go. There you go. So that's our question for you.
Yes.
What is the weirdest souvenir, and why are we so compelled to buy them in the first place?
All right. Word of the week.
Word of the week.
Now, I must say, I have a bone to pick with you. The last couple of words of the weeks were pretty crap.
Were they?
Yeah, pretty average.
I'm gonna pull out this German book again, and we're gonna do German words.
Yeah, go for it. This week's better, and it's really hard to pronounce.
Thank you.
This one is Bibliobibuli. Bibliobibuli. That sounds like a fat man.
Doesn't it?
Yeah. Like a really sort of, I suffer from the bit of the Bibliobibuli. Or actually, more like a condiment that you'd put on tacos. Yeah. I have the guacamole and the Bibliobibuli, thank you. Obviously from biblio, meaning book, this one was coined by H.L. Mencken in 1957. These are people who read too much. The Bibliobibuli. I know some who are constantly drunk on books, as other men are drunk on whiskey or religion. They wander through this most diverting and stimulating of worlds in a haze, seeing nothing and hearing nothing. I don't see anything wrong with that, to be honest.
Nope, I don't either. I thought it was a good description.
Yeah.
That's what I have on my tombstone is going to read. My husband swears he's going to do this to me. My tombstone will read, not now, I'm almost finished with this book.
Yeah. Why don't you just have this word? Catharine Bramcam. 19, whenever you were born, to 2050, 60.
Something like that. Well, the women in my family live a long time. Proud bibliobule.
Yeah, that's what it should be.
Yeah. And
your headstone can be like a carved book.
An upside down book on top of the gravesite, like I just left it. That'd be great.
Yeah. See, we're planning this out. Andrew's probably just like putting his
I'll have
hand
to
on
leave
his head going,
detailed instructions to the children.
yeah. And because you're writing the Future Girls universe, it's got to have some element of that. Maybe,
Yeah.
like I said, it should be interactive so they can touch the gravestone. It's a touch screen.
Oh my gosh, so they have some things like that, which are pretty damn creepy as far as I'm concerned.
Actually, I want to check the legalities. I started talking to some people at work about this because I've had a window put in the side of the van and I want to put an LCD screen in there. But I don't know if it's illegal to be driving around with that as advertising.
Oh, don't know. You'll have to, find out. That might be interesting to know.
Should we do a tortured sentence?
Let's do a torture sentence. Do you want me to read it?
Yeah. Next time, don't put the wrong emphasis on the right syllable. Tortured sentences. I think if I'd known what was going on with your trip, I should have changed that to don't fly thin air.
Yes.
Sleeping at JFK Airport is not acceptable.
No.
And I'd like to thank JFK for sponsoring the show.
Abandoned JFK. Oh my gosh.
Well, they clearly didn't sponsor this episode.
No. So this is a tortured sentence from a student who fancies himself as very intellectual. And if you do fancy yourself as very intellectual, be very, very, very cautious, because you will sometimes you will sound like this. Here's the sentence. Then there is the issue of redacted works, like the case studies we had to read in torts. A redacted fact pattern could lead to one conclusion, where the full facts of the case could lead to an entirely different result, and here now with Foucault.
Redacted is now my hate word for this month. But I hate that word. That, moving on, all those wanker words. They are wanker words. You don't need to use that.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
And it also
so I just thought that was pretty entertaining. It's like, that was great. I don't think you said anything, but you had a lot of words to do it.
Yes, but he or she has got a great future path into politics.
Yeah. Yes, they do.
Because that's nearly
or with law, where you're just like, this same student, it's a he, once made a comment. He said, well, we were talking about how anything that you write has got an agenda, because you're filtered through your opinion and your world, right?
Yeah.
And he says, well, except for all of the decisions by our Supreme Court, those are completely, opinion free and bias free. And I said, well, if they're completely bias free, why is it such a important thing about who's on the Supreme Court?
And why do you need to talk like that?
Yeah.
I'd love to interview a politician. See if
I don't know.
I'd like to ask them one question, and is that when you get elected, do you get assigned a speech coach where they say,
I'm sure they do.
You cannot use normal words. We are going to train you to use as many big words as possible so that ordinary people just shrug and go, yeah, whatever.
Well, that's what they want. They want to be able to talk and not really have anybody understand. I believe that's part of the goal.
I did hear and I'm going to try and listen to this lady actually a bit more, pick up some tips. She interviews politicians on TV, and she was on the radio because she did something that no one has ever really done before. And when she was interviewing a certain politician, a federal politician, you know how they've got those trained answers? They'll just use the same answer over and over again in their catchphrase. Every time he started that, she'd go, I'm going to stop you there. You're not allowed to repeat the same answer for the question. You're breaking the rules.
Oh, wow. That's great.
And so she'd go, stop. Give me a proper answer, please. And it was on TV. And they're like, how could you do that? And she goes, well, I just got tired of hearing the same crap from them all the time. And it's true. I thought,
not bad.
Yeah, because they've all got their trained responses that they can merge any question back to what their one sentence or their one paragraph. So that's a skill in itself, but then, to have someone just break that norm and go, wrong.
Mm-hmm.
I'd love to have a big button. If I was on
That'd
TV.
be pretty cool.
Meh. Meh. Anyway.
That's what you can be in charge of.
Yeah, the button man. Pushing buttons.
Yes.
All right. Now,
All right.
I don't think we've got any dead pieces. I can't remember. We sort of had to pull this show together just about 2 minutes before.
That's right. It's the jet lag show.
The jet lag show. All right. Is there anyone you want to give a shout out to?
Oh, just you for taking over for the last 3 weeks. I really appreciate that.
Oh, look, it was fine. I can talk to anyone.
That's good. That's a good skill.
Yes and no. Can be a bit awkward, you know.
Well, that would be my fault. I gave you awkward guests, obviously. It was the guests.
No, guests were fine. It's just, yeah, I don't know. I think I'm going to be one of those old men that can just sit in the park and come up to someone and go, "How you going, champ?" You know. Anyway, shout outs. Yeah, I got no one to really shout out to. Yeah, here's what it is. Now, who have we got on next week?
Well, next week is our Independence Day.
Right.
On Friday, so I have not scheduled anybody, at least not anybody in the States, because most people are going to be gone. Either gone or drunk by 4 o'clock.
We might be able to see if we can get George on then, if he wants. But he's an ex-Defence Force man, so he might be quite patriotic about the 4th.
Yep. So we can discuss that. But the week after, we have Nina Amir, who does How to Blog Your Book.
Yes.
And so that'll be interesting. So we have some people coming up for the summer.
Cool. All right. Well, it's good to have you back, and that
Thanks.
You didn't get locked up somewhere.
Yeah, I'm happy about that. I behaved myself in Russia. I totally did.
Oh, well, there's a first. Now.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for listening out there. If you want to contact us about anything, podcast@newbiewriters.com. You can follow me on Twitter @newbiewriters. Google Plus as well. Look us up. We've got the Newbie Writers community, so that's always good. We should start pulling some more info from that, I think.
Yeah.
Catherine, you're...
Yeah, and you can follow me. I'm much more on Twitter now @CBramCamp. Mm-hmm. And we have prompts for newbie writers, so go to #newbie writers, and that's what I put all of the newbie writer stuff. I'll hashtag it, so you can look us up that way.
There you go. And if you see me in the street, say hi.
Just to make them feel better and famous.
Yeah, that's right. Oh, I don't know. So yes, till next week. We'll see you then.
See you then.
Your book starts here on the Newbie Writers Podcast.